Hello, everyone. Welcome to another glorious day over here, Wednesday. You know what that means. We get to learn lots today with Lori, and we have a very special guest for you. Yes, you're going to learn lots today. I'm excited. I'm excited every time we do these classes or these webinars. But if this is your first time, let me go through a little bit of a housekeeping, tell you about who we are. My name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC Network. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. We offer no-cost services to the local businesses through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz. The Los Angeles Regional Small Business Development Center Network serves small businesses throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And what do? Well, we offer no-cost business advising, meaning that you can meet one-on-one via phone or Zoom to address your specific needs and challenges. And we also offer virtual training and amazing programs to help and adapt and grow your business. So on that note, Lori, hello, good morning.
Good morning, Sadie. You've got like a little ring, a little hop skip to when you're saying that. I love your presentations. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams. Let's get started today. We have a very exciting show, a wonderful guest to learn from. So, here's my August webinars. I was just saying to Sadie, it's like what, middle of August already? September's around the corner. I'll be scheduling them for September, but for right now, this is all I got, guys. But I'll be repeating the financial literacy sessions as well as the legal structure and possibly bringing on the one about sales tax as well. There's still a lot of confusion on sales tax. And, yes, if you are selling out of state, you may be needing to add sales tax on, and Spotify doesn't do it for you. They only have you add and collect, they don't remit. So if any of that is, I wonder if I'm doing it correctly, reach out to me, take the class. Let's get some info on that. Okay, today I figured you guys heard me talk for an entire hour last week. Okay, so I'm not going to be giving you any words of wisdom or talks, but I am going to announce something new. So I am now going to be, I did this before with the SBDC, I'm going to be writing success stories. Success stories are an important part of the SBDC, and they're used in many different ways. They are used on the website, so some are selected and rotated on the website, so it's a marketing opportunity if your company gets written up as a success story. They are also used in different meetings, different high-level meetings, including going all the way to Washington, D.C., because when they go to Washington, and they talk with Congress about getting additional funding for the SBDC, the success stories, which I remember being really surprised that this plays a crucial role because they are distributed to different congressional members and members of the SBA to read about how the SBDC advisors and everybody included have helped companies. And so these success stories are actually circulated also along the Washington aisles to be highlighted for what SBDC has done. Also, what happens if you get your company written up as a success story, you get a little PDF. It's got their logo and it says you've been highlighted, so you can use it for marketing on your website. And if they do choose to actually have it on the website as well, you can tie in a link. So there's a marketing advantage. It's kind of a name recognition, etc. So how do you have a success story written about you? Well, in here is a list of the different questions that I ask when I interview somebody for a success story. And so all you have to do is, Sadie's going to put my email in. She does it a million times in the chat. Just send me an email. Say, hey, I'd like to be written up as a success story. Give me a little bit of information on these bulleted items and just send that to me. And I will get in contact. Make sure you give me your phone number, your email, in the email, so I can communicate and get different additional information. And also there's like a little release that you have to sign knowing that we're writing a success story story about you. So I wanted to do a shout out to those in the audience, because I always say, if you want to be a guest on the show, and I just know it, guys, there are a ton of stories. Right now, we got 33 people clicked in. I bet there's 33 stories out there, but maybe you don't want to come on the show, be a guest. I know that's kind of a little bit more, in the spotlight, so to speak, but you wouldn't mind having a story written about you and share your story, and you might even enjoy that. So I want to do a shout out to everybody about the success story opportunity. Upcoming shows, we have Sahar, which is really interesting. She is also an advisor at the SBDC, and I wanted to have somebody come on and talk about marketing. It's been a while since we talked about marketing, and I was fascinated with her background, because and she's going to talk more about it. I'm just going to give a little teaser, but she takes kind of a psychological aspect to marketing, figuring out what is it about a customer that you can touch on a deep level and make very strong connections. And so we're going to have a fascinating discussion on how to look at marketing differently to make those really strong connections with your customers. And then Fitz is coming on August 22nd. He's a digital marketing specialist, but also during the pandemic, he started a company serving ice cream. And during that time period, obviously, started at one of the worst times to start a company, but many people have actually turned that into a benefit. But as he went through the process and decided eventually to close the company, he's now looking at restarting again, but with a ton of wisdom. And he's been kind of auditing what worked, what didn't work. I've had numerous conversations with him about that. And I asked him, I said, how about coming on the show and sharing some of this information? Because his words of wisdom can really help people no matter where they are in their progression. So that's what we have coming up in the next episodes. But today we have a really fascinating discussion. So let me introduce our guest today. Kathleen Vicenzotti is the owner of JAK Concrete Coatings. Kathleen and her husband Joe live in Long Beach and co-own JAK Concrete Coatings. Kathleen is a sales and marketing executive with an MBA in marketing who leads and manages sales marketing operations. Joe is a contractor of over 40 years and manages installation and operations. Kathleen is also the co-owner of The Selling Edge, a sales training company that works with small businesses and solo entrepreneurs to increase sales, retention, and referrals. Kathleen and Joe are proud to be local small business owners who pride themselves in delivering excellent customer service to their clients and a positive, supportive workplace for their employees. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lori, so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
There is so much in your bio that I am not even sure where to start. I already got a clue of all these different avenues that I'm going to go. But why don't we start out? One thing I saw was interesting, and I could be making the story up here, Kathleen. You're going to correct me on this. I could be making the story up. I get this funny feeling that your road was going down like the executive in the marketing, and then all of a sudden, Joe's got this other company, and somehow you kind of redirected and got connected into the company. I got a funny feeling that that's what's happened, right? And so there's a story there, and then there's a story under the story. So walk us through how it all began.
Oh my goodness, Lori. Yes. And it is a story, and it's fascinating. We can decide which doors to open, not where we want to go. But you're exactly right. I started off my career as a sales and marketing executive with Ford Motor Company, and I was a factory rep dealer. So I used to train salespeople how to sell vehicles for Ford so that we could backfill cars. So my job was to increase market penetration in the automotive industry. Realized corporate gig wasn't my thing. Because it wasn't conducive to a family. So we started a family, and I always was fascinated by business and being self-employed. It was always curious about, how are these people succeeding? What are they doing? And so over my course of being a mom, I, had a service business. My husband was a contractor. I did consulting and work there. And then as my daughter got older, I went back into corporate America. You know, it was like time. And I got hired as a sales and marketing field development manager, trainer, and, you know, was loving life in the East Coast. And we moved to the West Coast. My husband was a contractor. I had an offer with my company. So he decided, well, he was a general contractor. He had done new construction remodels, but he was more of a solo entrepreneur. It wasn't like we had a construction company. He did the majority of the work. So if he couldn't really show up, it didn't get paid, which is very different than running your own business. So he, was at a point where with my corporate career, we moved to California and my company was up in San Francisco and we had family in Long Beach. So we ended up here, and he decided he was going to do kitchen and bath remodeling and help design kitchen spaces where, he could do it electronically, whereas as long as he had the measurements, he can help design kitchens. So we were at a kitchen and bath show in Las Vegas, and we ran into a distributor who was selling concrete coatings. And, having 40 years experience in the industry, construction industry, Joe had a lot of experience installing floors, working with concrete coatings. And one of the projects he had come off before we had moved to California was a restaurant that had to close down for a week to redo their floors because that's how long it took for the floors to cure and for things to happen. And this company was touting that they could cure in a day, that you could be back up in operations in a day. And he's thinking, oh my goodness, businesses have to close down. If you're doing a remodel, if you're a business owner or you own a business and you're trying to do a remodel, you cannot afford to be closed.
Right. Especially restaurants. I mean, that's like crucial.
So he comes, he comes back, and he says, okay, I know what we're going to do. And I go, what's that? He goes, but I need you. And I go, what do you mean? He said, well, there's this company, they do coatings. You can get on the floor in a day. And he goes, I can just see it being such a great value add to companies like who don't have to wait. Homeowners can have a quick turnaround. We could do one thing. I didn't want to be a contractor here because there's so many moving pieces. You need a good sub, you need good subcontractors, and to build those relationships takes a while. So he goes, it's one thing, we can get really good at it. I know I can do it, but I just need help with sales and marketing. I don't know how I would let people know that we're in business because we just moved to California. We didn't know anybody other than family and a few friends. And he goes, so I need you. Do you think you could do the marketing and help me kick it off? I go, sure. If you want to do it, I will help you. So next thing you know, he's studying for his contractor license. He says, we're going to do concrete coatings. And, what are we going to call it? His name's Joe. I'm Kathleen. So Joe and Kathleen. And there we go. JAK is how we got our name and how we got our start. So I kept my job. I was working and just helping him with some social media and marketing. And obviously he said, well, you're going to have to sell it because I'm not a good salesperson. Right. So I said, okay, I'll get out and sell it. So I did that on the weekends when we first started. And then, things started morphing. This was in 2019. And of course, the pandemic hits, which was a blessing and a curse.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's go into that in a second. But before we go, there's some things I want to pack it. And Sadie, I didn't ask you this in advance. I'm putting on this spot. Can you pull up and tell me when you're ready? Pull up Kathleen's website. I want everybody to have a picture of what this product looks like because it's beautiful. And I realize we want to have a picture. So you tell me and just show it when you're ready to see it. There's a couple of fascinating things, Kathleen, and that is, and something I experienced as well, kind of in reverse, is the different from what you see in a corporate environment and what you experience in a small business. I was in a small business, then I went into the corporate world for just a little bit and then came back to the small business. And what I realized that I learned from corporate was two things. One was the really necessity for, I'm going to call it processes. Corporations have processes and procedures, small companies do not. And I realized that not having processes and procedures cause small companies to be inefficient, make mistakes, a whole slew of issues, right? So I was realizing that if small companies looked at processes and procedures at the same way that corporate America did, they would benefit. But then the other thing I also realized is back in the day, not so much anymore, people pictured that if you came from corporate America, you had more knowledge, you were more capable of running a small company because you've seen so many things, but you're really siloed in corporate America. And you know, realize that when you get in a small company, there's so much you don't know. I just gave you two big mouthfuls. I know I did. So run
Yeah.
with either or in any direction you want to go.
No, and you bring up some really great points because I think part of my journey too is, when I left Ford and was independent and worked with my husband, did some service businesses and was self-employed for many years before I went back to corporate. I always had this, I don't want to say it was FOMO, but I always felt like less than. I mean, it's terrible to say, like you almost feel like corporate has this like, perception that you're so much more educated and know so much more, but
And
it's
I'm so
really,
glad you're talking about this because so many entrepreneurs feel as though they're less than because they're a solopreneur. And I'm like, no, you're actually more than.
more than. I'm like, do
Yes.
you know how much harder it is? Like, having to realize I was very valuable. Oh, and thank you. I'll just take a pause here.
Yeah,
Thank you
please
so much
do.
for bringing this up. So this is our coatings that go exterior and interior. Obviously, garages are our bread and butter. However, we are a fabulous solution for exterior spaces that, to avoid the cost of ripping out all your concrete and redoing a space, we can come in, in a couple days and transform it and make it look beautiful and brand new using our coating. So
Wow,
yeah,
that is
thank you.
gorgeous. And I love the fact that you're not shutting down and going. I mean, concrete work can be forever, and many people put it off because of that. But this is incredible. I didn't even know there was such a thing that existed.
Yeah, so glad it brought you some value added information. So,
Wow.
and I really didn't either until we were introduced to the manufacturer of the product that we represent and that we decided to go with, because their product was engineered to be different than a lot of the products that were in the existing marketplace. That was one of the attractive pieces to me, was the competitive edge that partnering with a well-known distributor who had proven differentiation in the market was something that really appealed to me. And that's my corporate side talking. My husband was like,
Yeah.
oh, this would just be great because I could do one thing all the time, get really good at it. It's the same thing, just different applications. And my clients can get back to using their space quicker. So that was his MO. Mine was more from the different sales and marketing side. But yeah.
Well, and the combo of your guys with your corporation, your sales and marketing, his operation understanding is really key. You had pretty much a good team of skills, aside being married, you had a good team of skills, good hiring team together with your combination.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we really did complement each other. And, taking it back to our conversation about like the corporate side versus small business owner side, it is so true, because I think, as small business owners, we have so many different hats that you have to be nimble and adaptable. Those skills served me well when I worked for corporate, because I was very cross-functional and I could be very involved and I could see things from a different perspective, knowing how they all integrated, which really I think served me well when we started this business and started coming here. Is I was, just used to being scrappy and just being all different.
You know what? I have an interesting question on sales for you. This is going to be a fascinating question, or at least I think it is. So I always tell people, if I had like it when I was teaching at USC and Pepperdine, students would say, what's the first job I should get? If I want to be an entrepreneur, what first job should I get? Right. I would shock them by saying sales. Sales is the first job to get, right? Now, we also know many entrepreneurs get really intimidated, not just by sales, but feeling the confidence in selling themselves and their own products. So, Kathleen, you come from this corporate environment with name recognition. You don't have to justify the name, its
Yeah.
quality. You just got to come in and compete, right? So then you come into your own company with a brand new product with the sales training deluxe, but you have to speak about you. You have to speak about your husband. You have to speak. Did you find anything happen during that transition in your sales confidence?
Uh, it was a learning curve for sure. As far as confidence, no, because I knew my husband's quality of work ethic. He sustained a business. So I had the confidence of knowing that we could deliver the exceptional service that a customer expected. So that was a really good foundation. I knew we had a manufacturer that would stand behind the product and that we would honor our commitments based on knowing that business is based on trust and referrals and reputation. So, but what was interesting to me is I was a great sales trainer and a great salesperson in my corporate realm. But when I started going on sales calls, I went on 10 calls and didn't sell one job.
Tell me why is that? What do you think?
It was like this learning curve. Like I did feel like I was out of my element. It was just getting used to building confidence in the product, building confidence in, like you said, selling ourselves. And maybe it was just because it was so new, it was the first time. Because I think customers want somebody who is an expert and has enthusiasm for what, and I don't think I was bringing the expert because we were brand new, like starting it up. Like we had never installed a garage floor anywhere. And I'm out here, trying
You got this, trust me.
I
got it.
You got it. So I think it was just my lack of, being the expert in the space. So I really learned that I really had to do a lot of learning the language, learning the ins and outs of the industry, doing deeper. Like I felt like, oh, I got this. This is easy. Build the relationship, like no trust factor, explain the process. It's going to be a done deal. But I realized that my lack of experience in this product set really affected. Now, after that, like, it drastically improved. We grew it to, our first year we did like almost $750,000. Our second year we did over $1.5 million. So we grew very quickly. We had a lot of great experiences and learnings along the way. But yeah, it was interesting, just that shift of going from a corporate sales position to like one-on-one consumer sales. The other thing was it was in-home sales. It was that in-home sales process, which, I mean, I'm sure you've had many courses and many people talk. That's a whole different animal and, process, and just understanding the in-home sales process. It's a luxury want item too. Most people are doing it for their garage because they want it to look great. When they come in, they want it to be at a living space. It's not like your roof is leaking and you need to fix it. It's just something that we want to do to enhance our space, to enhance our living experience. And so it was a little bit of a different animal of selling, a need, need the carted around, or I need this product because of this, versus, I just want this because it looks great and it's going to be easy to clean. And
almost on the luxury side, and one of the things that I'm hearing, I kind of like to spin it this way, where you had at first a challenge getting comfortable with the product and your ability to do it in the company because it was brand new. That's the one thing the entrepreneurs have in their back pocket. And I always tell people, it doesn't matter that you weren't a salesperson before, your company, yourself, your product, come from your heart, and you've got a leg up. So you just confirm that. So guys, anybody out there that says, I'm not a salesperson, I can't do it, you already have that first part. So I'm going to leave the sales discussion, but I got to do one last thing before I do it. Like you said, you're running and you're wearing all hats, right? But yet you also understand from being in corporate sales about having processes, from making X amount of calls or what. What can you tell our audience who's running their company, doing the operations and having to handle the sales, anything that they can get in their set process, or any words of wisdom to get them on a track to constantly be pounding the pavement, no pun intended?
Perfect. Just like you talk about people knowing their financial numbers, I would say know your numbers. There's really only 4 things, that are going to drive your business from sales, and it's so important to just, I think, when you have so many other things that you're managing in the business, that when it comes to driving the sales, you need to know your leads. Like, how many people are you talking to a week, right? Like how many contacts, appointments are you running, or how many at-bats or opportunities do you have a week? So your weekly leads. The second thing is, what percentage of those leads are actually converting to customers? How many of those? And really just tracking your numbers, because the only way you're going to be able to drive the results is to know your numbers. It's like, don't guess, just look at it. Like, say, if I talk to 10 people and I close 3 out of 10, my closing rate is 30%. So if you know that you need, and then what's the deal value? How much is the average order? How much are you doing per sale, right? Track that. So those are the top 3. Then the fourth piece is, how quick can you close them? Get them from the meeting to the yes, to get on your books. Because if you're in a service industry like I am, you know, if you have crews that need to be filled, you really need to be able to back into your numbers to say, so how many appointments do I need this week to be able to keep my crews out there working or keep them busy, you know, 5 days a week? You know, we have 2 vans, 3 vans, 4 vans. How many appointments am I going to need based on my closing rate and my average deal value to keep them busy? So I would say if you're trying to run your sales, just know your numbers, take the time, just figure out where your leads are coming in, you know, how many of those are you actually converting to customers, your average deal value, and how quick are you doing it? Does it take a day, a week, 2 weeks? Because you need that lead time. It's like if you need to fill, like we've been in situations where we had to fill next week. Like, okay, we have holes in the calendar. What am I going to do? I need to be able to put people in
Yeah,
next week.
exactly.
So from a
Yeah,
sales perspective, I would advise them, know your numbers, know what it's going to take to hit your budget, hit your goals, hit whatever target you have for your business.
I love what you're saying. My first beginning was in sales, and we always knew the numbers, the conversion, and how much. It comes back to the main point. Success doesn't happen by accident. It's planning throughout. Now, I know in your bio, I read something about you teaching small businesses to sell. Can you tell us about that and what you offer? I want our audience to be aware of that as well.
Yeah. So as a lot of times business owners are a great salesperson because they believe in the product, they know the product, they can build that trust and credibility with their client, right? Because they know you've been doing it. But they're always not the best sales trainer or teacher. Meaning, you know how you do what you do, and it's very hard to scale and grow if you can't duplicate yourself or if you can't teach other people to sell and do it yourself. So I partnered with a girlfriend of mine, and what we do is we coach and train small business owners on how to use sales systems, from tracking, looking at your lead generation, how you can build that like, know, and trust factor quickly with your customer, and position your product to increase your close rate, to increase your retention, to increase your referrals, and to shorten that sales cycle by understanding why customers buy, and understanding that a lot of it, that customers have different needs as well based on their personality and their buying personality. So a lot of times customers, you know, some are just give me the bottom line. Other customers want the step-by-step details, and you have to be able to size up and identify how's my customer need to hear this presentation or understand my product to do business with me. So
Now, how does the audience get in touch with you? Is it the same? Is Sadie giving us the information? Like if they wanted to get more information about how to sign up or take a class from you or what you're offering, is it the same that we're putting in the chat, or is there something else we need in there?
Yeah, you can contact me through my business. You can also the Selling Edge
Up
is
there.
on
Hey,
Facebook.
got it. Yay. Yay.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you. And we actually have a free masterclass that's starting tomorrow. It's an hour and a half on Thursday and Friday, where we break down what I just talked about, the sales velocity equation, knowing the 4 things, and how to move through that and optimize each level so that you're maximizing your sales and revenue for your activity and your dollar spend. And we have a free webinar Thursday and Friday that your audience, we'd love to have them. I think the link is also there. Our class schedule is one of the links I shared.
Perfect. Because what I love about it is you've got the corporation sales training, which I'm very familiar having gone through that. Then you have the small business experience of translating it over there. So it's giving this two type of, perspective and combining it with processes. And I love that. That's why I wanted to make sure our audience was aware of what you're doing, because I could see as we were speaking, this unique combination that you have. Now, you had mentioned earlier on how you really grew the sales quite quickly. And I know that you started out, I'm selling, your husband's doing the work, and that's not how small your company is anymore. So let's talk about that growth stage. I mean, there is that situation where companies grow in zigzag, if you will, and it's never a comfortable convenience. And when you, like you said, you got a crew, they don't have anything to do, you're losing money if they're not working. So I know there was probably, and still is, this struggle of having enough work, not having too much work. When do you hire? When do you not? The challenges of hiring. I'm giving you just a wide playing field. Take it from there, Kathleen. I know there's a lot we can learn.
Yeah. And thank you so much for asking. And such a mind shift and a decision to take your company from here to here. So it really comes, do you have the clarity of where you want to go and what you want to do? And then just having the confidence of leaning on other people who've done it, and then just the courage to step into, like you said, hiring people, taking that leap. Because my big thing was, can we afford to hire somebody, right? So with sales, it was pretty easy because we did it based on commission only. So there was some initial investment to get a salesperson started, but I knew I couldn't drive the sales. I had another full-time job that I was working. I was doing this on the side. I was working on weekends.
Brought on salespeople too.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I brought on a sales.
That did that. Okay. Tell us a little, 'cause people are afraid to hire a salesperson. So talk about that. I didn't realize you brought on a salesperson as well.
Yeah. So that's really what I did first, was I wanted to bring a salesperson so we could have the sales that I could backfill the crew, because I didn't have the confidence, because to find skilled laborers that you want to be able to provide meaningful income for their families. You want to make sure that they have work, that they're not like working 2 days. And, I didn't want that churn of people coming through because we didn't have steady work. So I really went and hired a salesperson first. And what I did is I looked for a seasoned salesperson who had in-home sales experience. And I started commission only. We're in the service business, and the individual that we hired had been familiar with commission only sales. And I did a little base training up front, like until she was getting up to speed. We provided the leads and worked with helping. So I basically transitioned myself out to help get her started so that I could just take a back seat to focus on other aspects of the business, and then train and coach her to get up to running. And then once she started filling in the jobs, then I had the confidence, to scale up our crews on the back end.
Oh, I love that, Kathleen, because you know what? You're the first one we had on that talked a success story about hiring a commission-only salesperson. And I'm sure that part of the success is a bit is luck getting the right person, but was your interviewing process. You didn't just grab the first person. You did a strong interviewing, know what you're looking for. So, hey, guys, a commission-only salesperson is an option for growing the company. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. And it is true. It is a different mindset. Like, most people aren't conditioned, they want the study, but you can find them, and they're out there. And there are very skilled people who are hungry, and if you present to them the opportunity for them to create something, be part of what you're building. It was also the approach. I think I'm very much of a sharer, like, we're in this together. Like, I can't do this without you. So anybody we brought in, we made sure that they were part of what we were doing going forward, and they would be very integral to our team. Like, we're building this together. Do you want to be a part of it? Come join us. We're going to do great things. We're going to have, go here and paint that picture of where you're going. That's why you need to have the clarity. What do you want your business to look like? What are you going to do with your company? What do you stand for? What value are you bringing to the market? And who are the people that want to be a part of that?
Did they rep for other companies too, making it allowable for them financially to start with you when you had little? Is that how it works out? So they're not, worried about not having income?
Yeah, you know what? The first person we did, she did for a little bit, but then left that to just do with us. But, flexible. Like, you think about somebody who might be in a life change, I did go through a couple of different people to find, we had a couple of people come through, like, you have someone who is retired, or somebody who is on, has lots of experience in the industry, but looking for something more part-time, or somebody who is in a change of life where they're either caring for a child or a parent, and they need some flexibility, and maybe they have the resources of a spouse where they don't need that full-time income, but they want the opportunity to make meaningful income on a flexible, because with appointments, you could be a little bit flexible. So that helped us, really sift through and find the right candidate. So lots of creative solutions you can find out there based on what you're looking for. So don't ever get stuck in the box. It has to be this way, because as, business owners, we have to be creative and look for alternative methods to fill the needs that we have, the unique needs that our particular business might present.
I know, because like you said, you started this in 2019. That's not been in that many years. And you're really like you've been an established company for decades doing the same thing. And one of the gems you said, and I don't want to lose this, is that you have to have the vision. You have to be able to communicate to the salesperson what you want that salesperson to project about your company. And that's one of the things that corporations do. They train new salespeople on the language, the verbiage, the vibe, the feel. So when they stand out and represent the company, they're representing it properly. So it really is how well you hire, how well you train, how well you communicate. So the other thing is you got to have your stuff together before you bring somebody else in.
So agree, Lori. And, as business owners, identifying what your values are, not only for your customers, but also for your team, is a step I think sometimes small businesses don't take the time to like really hone. And I have found that once you do that, it does allow you to share that and cast that vision easier once you take the time to just really, who are we? Why are we here? Why am I in business? Why am I doing this? And
Now,
so,
staying with this interviewing and selection process. So you
okay.
have on the opposite end, operations. You have people that you're having to hire to come in to help with these projects. Now, if they don't do a good job, they don't show up, your company is who they look at, the customer looks at, right? And so you can't just pick up anybody. You got to do the research. And, Kathleen, where I'm going with this is so many small companies just get desperate. They interview one person, they get a referral. It's my cousin's relative's uncle, what have you. And they bring people on because they're tired and desperate and they don't do the work up front. I have to believe that you have a process and we're as diligent on the operations end as you just spoke to us about the sales end.
Yes. And we've been there. It is. And I've been at that, just give me a body. Like,
Yeah, I've seen people
just like
just
I
give
just
the
need
body.
somebody
Yeah.
to but I have we actually were fortunate in a sense that my husband could fill in if somebody didn't show up, which we had. So like in the beginning it was kind of rocky, but yeah, you have to have processes. So what we did is we actually had an interview process where we would hire, before we actually would hire somebody, they had to spend a day with us, a day or two with us, job shadow, go through it, very clear. I had a very clear expectation document, like what we expect of the people who work for us, what their day is going to be like. Again, with our type of projects, we do a 1-day installation and we're typically booked the next day. So if they cannot finish that day, it really throws a wrench. So, just being very clear upfront about who we're looking for, what we need, and are you the right fit? And then we also had we had a 30, 60, and 90-day window of review before it was, they were brought on full time and officially. But I think upfront, the big thing was, have them hang out with your crews for a day or two, or have them come, shadow. You can always just, we did a 1099 type agreement, just, until we brought them on. And, in California, I don't know, I probably should do more research on that, but that's just what we did. We brought them short term before we turned them into a full-time employee to just have them shadow and work alongside of us. But
And
we
that's
have
the job descriptions, the shadowing, the expectations. Okay, so speaking of expectations, the other really tricky part is the customers. So in that, I have to believe, even though clearly what it's going to look like, the customers have a picture in their head, right? And you don't necessarily know what that picture is in your head. And unlike, oh, would you like to return this shirt you just bought? It's not, would you like to return the basement of your garage? You can't. So I have to believe that there was some tricky things in that, and all our entrepreneurs are dealing with customer expectations on some level, but yours is probably a big time. So talk to me about processes, communication, how you got around issues, any kind of stories you want to tell us that we can learn on customer expectations that clearly stating them in advance.
Yeah, it's so important, especially in this situation where it's like you cannot take it back once it's done. We have a processing system again, like through our sales presentation, we have samples that we show the customer, and, you know, we walk the space and really just lay out what we will do, what we won't do. We try to be very clear, our contracts. We have special line items that really clarify, where they also have to sign off on the sheen, the texture, the color, because we were just clear, once we, you know, do this, you can't, you know, one of the biggest assets to us was doing great before and afters, and really just being diligent about documenting and using a service we use Company Cam that documents when we take pictures and upload them. So we do lots of pictures so that customers can see and have access, and start building that repository of final products, and just talking through. We really haven't had too much, you're like, oh, I hate it. Like, most people are like, oh, I love it. We did have one or two people say, I'm not really happy with the color that I picked. Is there anything we can do? We've had to do a few redos, like, okay, we could come and rebroadcast over it a different color, you know, obviously at your expense, because it's just like if you paint your walls, you know, Sherwin-Williams isn't coming back and giving you free paint because you didn't like the color. So it's just setting the expectations up front. And then also, one of the things I learned over time is we did have some expectations of like concrete cracks, and like if the concrete cracks are coating cracks, and people expected just because we put the coating on it wouldn't crack. I'm like, well, you can't warranty cracks. So I really had to make sure our language and our contracts clarified, and our salespeople were really trained and coached to really set thorough expectations with the customer. So we've been, knock on wood, pretty fortunate that we really haven't had any really
Gotcha.
upset.
In your case, you mentioned the contracts. I know many times people can get away with not having a lawyer engaged, but I'm thinking you probably did or might have had in lawyers or some kind of official in your contract. How did you get your contracts to be sound? That's what I'm going to ask.
That's a great question. And we requested some colleagues in the industry. I wanted to review their contracts, what language they have, and I did send it to an attorney that was very reasonable. He said, I'll just review it. I'll give you a contract. It's a standard project development contract, business contract. And he just went through it, and we just adopted it. And then if we tweak anything, I just run it past him. But it wasn't very expensive. I mean, it might have cost me $400 to have him generated, because it's a pretty standard California contract. But speaking with other people in your industry and getting samples of what their experiences, I think that's what's so powerful too about masterminding or connecting with other business owners in your communities. Because I think it's very lonely as a business owner. Sometimes you're by yourself, you don't know, and really trying to network and surround yourself with people in your same industry that might have some of the same problems and experience some of the things you're seeing. It's so important to connect and just get advice from other people. You know, how'd you handle it? What did you do? What are you putting in your language? This is what I've done. So I'm a big supporter, advocator of that.
You know what I like what you said too is, once again, you were creative. You didn't go to a lawyer and say, write me a contract. You got the contract, gave it to the lawyer and said review, which cut your cost a lot. So that's another option of say how you approach the lawyer with the product already ready. I think that was a great gem and a takeaway as well. You mentioned about being a small business can be lonely, and there's so much truth in that. I want to kind of walk down the emotional side of being a small business owner, because you mentioned a bit about how you kind of feel like you're less than coming from a corporation as well. So, what did you feel was, let's start off the biggest surprise that you had, either in what you experienced or how you felt going from the corporation to the small business world? What's been striking to you?
What has been the responsibility for my team, I would have to say.
Interesting. Tell us
Yeah,
more. What do you mean when you say responsibility for your team? Tell me about that.
because I feel if I'm extending an offer of employment to them, I really want it to be a good fit for them and for us, and trying to balance that. And really, I think for me, being able to have the consistent work to provide for their families Whereas like in corporate, I kind of almost felt like, well, they can find another job in the organization, or they have skills that are transferable. I don't know. That just for me was just more of, I didn't expect the sense of almost to the point of where, and this just could be a personality defect of mine, almost to the point of where I really had to take off my emotional responsibility and put on my business hat. Does this make sense to keep this person? No, I have to terminate them, which is really hard to do. And I really was struggling. Whereas in my, I don't know why in my other corporate, I didn't have that feeling, but maybe because I was the owner and it was my name signing the paycheck, I felt like it was personal, which is not really the reality because it's a business, but I took it as it was very personal to me.
You
That
know,
was,
that's fascinating to me because so many times I've had to tell people, being a turnaround, I did, CFO
yeah,
turnaround work for years. And a lot of it usually involves getting rid of some of the employees. And it's such a fine line. And I think it's fascinating how you said you didn't really have that experience as much as corporate, but when you came to the small business community and your own company, you felt differently. I experienced the same as well. So you have this where a small company is such a wonderful, special thing because of those tight relationships, but that same mentality can harm you when the relationship's not benefiting you. I think there's a gem of wisdom in there that I don't actually know what the gem is. I just presented the struggle to you, Kathleen. But where do we find that middle ground where we don't throw away the lovely experience of family that the small company gives us, but we don't let that emotion harm us financially and for our business? How do we find that?
yeah. It's tough, and I think it comes down again to just knowing again the business financials, which you're such an expert at sharing and telling people, because that's, and then balancing it with the expectations. And if your team knows, we're very transparent. So like I really feel like it is just being very transparent and communicative with your staff, and that they know where the business is and where things are at. So when you have to make those hard decisions, it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
I think it is, but it is also just the mental, the mental discipline that you need as a business owner, to just understand the numbers first. And I think that was a lesson that I'm learning. And thanks to what you and your community are offering, I did have the pleasure of working with Steve Richardson on some financials, because I come from a very sales background. My husband was a very operations background. We were not very strong in the financial, and being a sales,
Yeah.
so just sell more. As long as we get the revenue and as long as I could make payroll or I have enough, we're good. But until you start understanding like your margins and different things and how things play in, how can you support this? And does it make sense? And a business side, know your numbers again, and then let the numbers speak for you, especially with your sales people. Like that really helped us a lot too. Gave me, having some metrics actually gave me the piece to know that they weren't producing what we needed them to produce. So
Yeah.
even though I still feel that special thing, they still know that they have to deliver. And if they don't, it's it's not a shared responsibility, but it's their responsibility to get it done. So
Wait, this reminds me of something too. I was working with a client that really needed to increase their prices. They go out and they'd sell, and then the client would ask for a discount. They'd feel emotional or worried about money, and so they'd give the discount, right? And they told me for years they couldn't do this, but I got them to finally look at the financials, and then I noticed that they were increasing their prices. And I said, "How did you do this? Because you told me you couldn't." Because I was very curious. And she said, "Well, when I looked at the Excel document with all the numbers in, the Excel document became my boss, because I knew if I gave that discount or if I kept that employee, this Excel document told me I wasn't going to have any money." And so the Excel document gave her the power and confidence. So what you're saying is dead on. And it reminded me of that situation so much so. And I think knowing the numbers gives you the ability to know that you have to do something. You suddenly don't have a choice. Before you're like, you get all emotional. Well, they're really a good person and they got a family. And like, oh, you know. And I used to always say, I can't. I also have a background in biology and science and research, and I would always use the expression, "You can't kill the host. If you kill the host, the whole system goes down." So
Right.
you can't have one person that's not supporting, and that's such a key component to that. So, here's an interesting, I'm asking the harder ones. So many times people in corporate America, they look out the window of the small business and they think, oh, the grass is so green there. And then people in the small business look in the corporate America and they go, well, the grass is green there. I think the grass is green everywhere, but it depends on where we're at. So what did you feel you lost a little or gave up when you left corporate America? What did you gain? Wherever you want to go, because you're looking at two windows that sometimes people who don't see the other sides don't always know what the truth is. What would you share on that?
Oh my goodness. It is so true. I think it is just knowing the vision that you have for your life and the lifestyle you want, right? Because having been on both sides, one is very freeing just to kind of show up, go as hard as you can for 8 hours a day and just come home and be like,
I'm
right?
done. It's done.
I'm done.
I'm
Till
done.
tomorrow, right? Even though that's kind of not a reality because you still have the pressures of your job. But that's kind of what I felt like, is at least I could turn it off. And I knew that if something didn't go great, I'd still have a paycheck next week. The
Right.
difference is being a small business owner is that it's always on, because you know that if you're not showing up for yourself or things aren't working, you might not have a paycheck there. So you're driving that. So I think it's just really understanding, just where you're at in your life and your lifestyle and really what brings you joy. Like I much prefer the risk in the not knowing and trusting my own abilities and my own confidence that I know that our business is going to be strong and if it doesn't work, I'm going to find something else. I'm much willing to trade that for the freedom and flexibility that if I wanted to take off this morning to be on this call, I have the flexibility. If I wanted to go to the beach or take our boat out for the day, I don't have to ask anybody. Like I just need to schedule it. Whereas, working in corporate, I always felt very accountable. Like I would be the type that I got at my desk. I worked longer than I should. Like if I went and met a girlfriend for lunch, I felt guilty, or like I have to let them know I'm not going to be in the office. Like, so for me to cut that part off is so freeing, even though I'm having the stress of being a
Yeah.
small business owner for yourself. So kind of a long answer, but I would say the thing I miss about corporate is some of the higher level conversations of the vision and being exposed to a greater impact global, like, more of a global impact, where this is more of a micro community, smaller impact. And I do miss the professional interactions, but on the other side, I've really found a lot of that through networking and connecting with other small business owners and really getting out in the community and really just immersing yourself. And what you'll find is so much, even I would say higher caliber people who are small business owners, because a lot of people in corporate have taken their skills and brought it out into the marketplace of small business
It's
owners.
true.
So,
It's true.
yeah.
And corporate does have those different exposures and those high level meetings, and you get that information. Absolutely. I can completely see what you're talking about. But, I think another point that you said that is so true is, and I'm not quoting the words correctly. I can't recall exactly your words, Kathleen, but you said something about where you are in your life and where you are right now. And I think too many times, especially with what I call Hollywood entrepreneur right now, everybody's like, I need to be an entrepreneur. If I'm not an entrepreneur, because it's the big thing, right? But there's times there's times in my life, like I moved from one state to a next. I got a job, and that was one of the times I was an employee because I needed to be an employee right then. I needed to feel something safe. I was exhausted from owning my company. I needed to be an employee then. Then there was other times, no, I wanted to not be an employee, and that's where I tended to be the most time. But what I'm trying to say is really understand that there is both risk and benefits, and life is full of choices. And just because we're choosing one or the other doesn't make it right or wrong. We got a whole life to experience a lot. It's no longer like our parents or our grandparents when you started and you were doing one career and that's what you did and that's you retire. We have freedom in life to come and be fluid in and out of things. And so when it's not working, jump back on the corporation, ship, ride it for a little bit, get some money, get some vacation time, and then jump back in. You don't have to be on one or the other, but you can recognize what both offers. Would you say that's a good summary?
Yeah, you hit it now right on, it's just perfect. And I think that is such a great example of what you shared. Same thing with me, like I stayed home when I had my daughter, went back, after she was in school, and it's just the seasons of your life, and you're never too young or too old to start. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And, I've always had something going on, more than one thing always going on. I think that's the other thing too, is that we're in such a, interesting time where I personally believe you have to have multiple, I don't want to say streams of income, multiple different options and opportunities, just maybe one's a fun thing, one's your primary thing. But I'm always looking at, kind of what's changing in the landscape, and just making sure, like, cause you never know, like what could happen. You just have to be able to pivot, like you said, the seasons of your
I
life,
do.
and be able to have, and trust yourself, have the confidence and courage to trust yourself, and understand that if there's an idea you want to do, somebody's out there probably done it or something close. Find out who they are, go talk to them. How do they do it? What do they do? What do they need to do to get there? And how could you do it too? Because, you can get out there, just have the courage to, if you see something and you say, wow, that would be awesome, I would love that. Well, let's figure out a way to make it happen. My biggest question that I always ask is why not? That's how I got here. Why
Oh,
not?
why not? Why not? When I was in my 20s, and this is something that just happened in a second, and I remembered it as I was walking by the TV. I haven't had a TV in like 30 years, but I had a TV then, right? And there was the news on, and some hurricane had hit someplace, right? And it was talking about the devastation and all this. And then they were interviewing this gentleman who was like a lumber supply person. He's going, my company is great. It's doing wonderful. I walked by that, and for some reason, this is what stuck in my head. I thought, I always want to be the lumber company. And what I had in my head, Kathleen, is hurricanes are going to come and go during life. I can't stop hurricanes, but I can figure out how to pivot and always be the lumber company, or be the lumber company more than not. And I think that's what it's about, is kind of looking at what's happening. And like you said, multiple revenue streams. We are living in, I think we always were in very chaotic times. We are more aware of it. And maybe, if we were back in the 1930s alive, we would say it. But I think the real way to look at it for me personally is, I always say, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm going to be fully engaged, and I don't care what you want to do around me, world. I'm going to have a good life, and I'm going to have a lot of fun, and I'm up for it. I'm in, right? And when then you ask why not, it's like the whole world opens up for you. So as a last note, where do you see the company going? You've done so much in such a little period of time. What's your and your husband's vision for the
Our
company?
vision is we want to grow it. Like, I would like to see us, become a $5 million, $10 million annual revenue business. There's a lot of concrete in Los Angeles County, and we want the opportunity to give people a space that they can truly love and enjoy. And then businesses, we haven't really delved too much into some commercial or industrial. We've mostly primarily focused on residential. So to me, that's kind of the next level. Like, I'm just starting to get familiar with, we've won some contracts and some bids, which is new space for us, and we're navigating that landscape. So, our vision is, my husband always was, somewhat of a solo entrepreneur with one or two helpers. He was pretty much self-employed. Now I want it to be where we're developing a business that I can manage and run, and kind of step away from, and train and put people in place to bring that vision into things. And again, it comes down to what you talked about when we first started, is having the systems, having the structure, having things in place, so that we truly can enjoy the benefits of being business owners and work less in the business and spend some of our time on, you know, the vision and the growth of the business. So that's where I would really like to see us transition away from, is like days that my husband can actually take a couple days off and they wouldn't even notice he was gone. So
Right. Right. Well, you know what strikes me about our old conversation, and this is really the part I want to emphasize, is the amount of foundation. You've got the corporate process foundation. I mean, I can tell from the way you're describing something that you've got all of these situations in place, from the salesperson to the operations to the vision of the company to the website. And what I find is when people don't have that in place, they cannot grow to be 5 or 10 million, because they start to grow, but the house crumbles underneath because they didn't have the processes. And when they get really hectic, everything falls apart. I can see you getting to whatever revenue you desire because you're building that house each level very secure. And it's just a matter then of adding more of what you already have, adding more operation. I'm not saying it's seamless, but when you have the foundation in place, you have the processes and you have that framing to build on. I can see you taking it anywhere that you want to go. You know, if you ever wondered if you wasted a moment of your time in corporate America, no. And that's why I tell a lot of new entrepreneurs, you know, don't they get where they want to be an entrepreneur at 20 and 19, and I'm not saying anything against it, but never underestimate the advantage of being educated and trained on a corporation's payroll, because you're getting paid, you're getting the training, you're getting the expertise. It's a great training ground to be an entrepreneur. And I think your story really brings that concept home. Any last words as we're closing off today?
no, but thank you so much for having me. This is truly a joy for me to be a part of. And if, you know, anybody watching and you have a business, just know that it is possible. And listen to Lori, know your numbers and let that be your boss. And don't forget just to dream big and have the confidence and courage to know that you can take wherever you're at to the level that you want to go.
Oh my God, those are such wonderful words of encouragement. So, Sadie, I'm going to bring you back online to close it down. Another fascinating discussion, wouldn't you say?
I mean, like I said, I know every single time we have these sessions, I'm going to learn something new. What I found so curious, it's like I really learned about sales today. I mean, like there's even this little book in the background where I don't know if we can see in the gallery view. What is it? Why they buy? I mean, you're literally, and I was like, wow, it's something about sales. It's like a world that's very fascinating to me. And I think it's that always that thing that people have. It's like this fear, but it's like, why? Why are you afraid? Like, you know, go for it.
Yep. And you know, like you said, being in a small business, you are all the hats. Okay, everybody. So Sadie, as you know, always sticks behind. She's going to give you my information. If you want to be included in a success story, please let me know. Give me an email. Even if you're not able to fill out all the questions, I'll get back to you. Would love to have your company highlighted in a story, or you can come be a guest on the show. Kathleen, thank you so much. This has been fascinating, a great share. I want to have you back on and tell us about the next venture you take. But I would say, yeah, this was a different type of conversation than we had so far. And it was remarkable. And it also helped people to really understand the importance of processes. You communicated them so well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, so to all my frequent flyers, thank you for being here every single week. And if you're new, I hope you enjoyed it, and join us next week for Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.